5 vital injury prevention secrets hidden in grassroots disability sports. Hey, I'm Sarah from mostmotion, and I'm here with another video for every sports and fitness coach who wants to help any client they coach in any sport they coach to help them avoid injury and get the best results possible for them. So, what are the 5 secrets? Well, we're going to go through them in a little bit of order. And as we do that, I'm going to tell you a quick story as how I learned that and what it taught me about injuries. So the first one is positivity or really reality. Okay, so what is positivity and reality? What do I mean by that? Well, first thing you do with somebody who can't physically do what is expected of them. So maybe you've got an ideal position that you want their body to be in, or you want them to be able to put their body in a certain position at a certain point during your training. If you have somebody who is physically impaired, they cannot do that, then you have to focus on what they can do. Or if you have somebody who is mentally impaired, then you have to focus on what they can understand. So when you focus on what they can do, so that you're based in reality rather than the ideal, then that helps you to take away the idea of there being any such thing as right or wrong, which means that is super empowering for your people because they can just get on with what they can do, and they always feel like they can do what you're asking them because you make it so that they can do it. And the way I learned this basically was I was working with a guy with cerebral palsy. He was 19 and he was in college doing a degree, and he was in a wheelchair. He came into the gym that I was working in a wheelchair, and he'd had trainers before that had all worked with him in the chair. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit scared of working with him. I'd never worked with a disabled athlete before. He played recreational wheelchair basketball, and he wanted to get stronger so that he was better on the court. So basically I said to him, is it possible for you to get out of the chair? Yes. Okay then. So let's just focus on what you can do out of the chair, because you spend most of the day in the chair. So wouldn't it be nice to get out of the chair and do other stuff? Oh yeah, that'd be amazing. So that's what we did. And because we focused on what he could do, it was really empowering for him. And he was prepared then to push himself in his life to do things that scared him, but he knew were perfectly possible. And he ended up flying to Australia to see some family members by himself, which he was super scared about doing. But he did, because he felt empowered by the things that we had done in the gym. So what does this have to do with injury prevention? Well, most minor sporting injuries, which is the majority of sporting injuries like muscle pulls and tears and things like that, happen because of the restricted joint movement that comes about through repetitive movement. Okay, so if you're always doing what is seen as the ideal or the correct, then you're constantly doing the same movements over and over and over again. And this can lead to minor injuries. Okay, so if we can forget about the idea of right or wrong for a little while, maybe you're in the warm-up or you're in the cool-down or something where it doesn't really matter, okay, then you can focus on what the body can do in terms of movement, and you're investigating lots of different ways of moving, and that way you're less likely to come across these minor injuries, because you're less likely to be doing the same movements over and over again. So the second thing is individuality. And when it comes to athletes or people with disabilities, it's very difficult to compare them to other people because their disability is unique to them. And that makes it so that you have to focus on them and they have to focus on themselves. Okay, so when it came to my client with cerebral palsy in the wheelchair, he had the connection with his own body because we were never looking at him in relation to anybody else. So we weren't comparing him to anything that anybody else had done. He wasn't looking around the gym going, oh, well, they can do that and I can't. He was literally just focusing on himself because he knew that his abilities were different to somebody else's. So that meant that he could tell me early on when something was becoming an issue for him, when he was feeling tired, when he was feeling like it was too much, he could tell me straight away. And this, when it comes to injury prevention, this is where many clients don't have the ability to have that connection with their own bodies. So they've no idea how far is too far, how hard is too hard until it's too late. Because as an industry, we're constantly telling them that they're doing it wrong, or we push them to do one more when they keep telling us that they've had enough. And that way we are teaching them that what they're feeling and what they're knowing about their body is not to be relied upon. We're telling them that what they think about their bodies is wrong. Okay, so that means they lose the connection. That means they're much more likely to experience pain or a problem before they recognize that it's there. Okay, so the third thing is removing barriers. Now, when you have a physically or mentally impaired person, you create adaptations, and that adaptation creates success. So when I was working with my guy in the wheelchair, we had so much fun experimenting with what he can or he could and could not do. So I would sit him on the bike. He would get onto the bike out of his chair, and because the feet were fixed in the pedals and his legs didn't work that way, we would have a bit of fun with him pushing with one leg and then with the other, and he'd go, no, I've had enough of that. And we'd move on to something else. Or we'd play, he'd lay on the mat on the floor and put his feet on a ball. I would hold the ball and he would try and lift his body up and down. He'd fall off the ball and all that kind of stuff. But we had a lot of fun while we were doing it because we were just adapting things around what he could do. So that created a lot of success, and he had then no expectation of what he could or could not do. So one of the challenges that I put to him was for the Sport Relief Mile. Okay, there used to be a challenge in the UK where you were challenged for charity to walk or run or do a mile in any way which you could. Okay, now he could walk if he was holding on to something. So I said, could you walk pushing me in your chair? Yes, I can do that. So that was the challenge. He was going to push me in his chair for a mile, which is a long way for somebody who struggles to walk. But when we got there on the day, we were on a rugby field. So we weren't just he wasn't just pushing me in his chair on the tarmac. It was on grass, and the pitch was on a slope. So he had to push me uphill as well. But because he had no expectation of what he could or could not do, he just wanted to give it a try. Okay, and when it comes to injury prevention, we're constantly questioning, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Okay, when you're moving bodies in lots of different ways, we're asking the question of your body, can you move this way? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but if you don't try, you will never know. Okay, so like I said, most injuries come about from that lack of experimentation with that movement. So when you do try and move in different ways, that's super important when it comes to preventing injuries. So the fourth thing is trust. Okay, athletes who have, or clients who have mental or physical disability live with that all day, every day. They know their condition better than you, which means that you cannot say to them, oh, put your body in this position, you'll feel a stretch here, you should feel this here. Okay, how the hell do you know? Because you don't have that condition, you don't have that problem that they have, or the restrictions that they have around their movement or their understanding. Okay, so if Matthew, my client in the wheelchair, taught me anything, it was to forget everything I knew about stretching. Okay, and when it comes to preventing injuries is really, really important, because too many times coaches say you should feel this here, you should do this here, because the reality is the body has too many combinations of muscles, ligaments, joints, all working in synchronization together. There's hundreds of muscles in the body all working together. It's not possible for you to logically work out which particular combination is going to be effective for that client. One, you can't feel it. Two, you can't think about the possible combinations. So the simplest way to get around it when it comes to injury prevention is to add a little bit of gentle movement to a stretch position and let your clients investigate things for themselves. Let them tell you where they need to be in order to feel it most. Okay, it might be that they need to rotate their shoulders slightly. It might be that they need to lean back slightly. It might be they need to do both of those things. in order to get that stretch to feel effective for them. So please don't go down the idea of you should feel this here, because my answer to that is, how the hell do you know? And just remember that statement. How the hell do you know? Okay, because there's no possible way that you could possibly know how somebody else's body should feel. Okay, so the last thing is less pressure. Okay, when you remove expectation of progress, we spoke about this a little bit before, you allow people to fulfill their potential that they didn't even know was there, because you're not restricting them in terms of what they expect of themselves. So Matthew didn't know whether he would be able to, especially when we got there to that the rugby field, he didn't know whether he was going to be able to push me round. And we just basically said, okay, well, whenever you need a rest, we'll just swap over, you have a sit down. And if you feel like you can continue, do. If you don't, then I'll push you for a little bit, and then we can swap again if you want to. And we just adapted it like that so that he could feel successful when he did it. But he did manage to push me all the way around that field for an entire mile, okay? And he's still super proud of that. And this was like 20 years ago. So, you know, he had no reason to believe he couldn't do it, so he did. And when it comes to injury prevention, or especially rehabilitation or recovery from minor aches and pains, oftentimes as coaches, we limit what our clients should be doing, or we limit what we ask them to do based on what we expect their bodies to be able to do. So it might be that they come in one day and they can run for 30 seconds. So then the next day we say to them, okay, well, if you can run for 30 seconds and you feel fine, let's make it a minute. How do you know? How do you know that that's all they can do? How do you know that they can do that much? You don't. So when we don't limit what our clients can do, we let them feel it for themselves, then we can start to accelerate their recovery, because they get to do more. They could do 5 minutes before it starts to ache or it starts to become a problem, okay? So you just don't know that. And when we leave it to our clients, we help them, we guide them in terms of their expectations of themselves, but we don't limit them, then it becomes much, much faster recovery. We let their bodies do what they need to be doing in the way that they need to be doing it for their particular issue. So you might be wondering, why am I talking about all these things? Well, the first sign, or the first part of preventing injuries, is getting your clients to understand themselves. And when we talk about should, and we talk about comparison, and we talk about all these things that we do in the fitness industry, we're actually getting in people's way, okay? So this is why I put together the Smart Coach Level 1 training, which is called The Vault of Injury Prevention Secrets. And we dive into body language. So what are the signs of somebody's emotional stress? Emotional stress is one of the biggest factors of injury in the first place. So if you know what these signs look like in somebody's behavior, then you know what to look for when it comes to injury, because also those same signs can be physical symptoms as well as emotional symptoms, because you cannot separate the two, okay? So we look at, we take an ex-FBI body language specialist, we look at his approach to body language and how that feels emotionally, how it's the signs of emotions, and we look at injuries and how that might manifest in terms of physical as well. We take Brené Brown's research on shame and how that might manifest itself in somebody's language or their behavior when they're talking to you about whether they can do something or not. And then we also look at that from an injury standpoint. We take BJ Fogg, who is a behavior expert, and his idea of tiny habits. And we look at ways of helping our clients move forwards with these issues when they feel like they can't do them. Maybe they've had these problems for a long time. And we also look at a user experience expert who's worked for Apple and people like that. And we use that approach to take away those barriers that people feel are in their way when it comes to getting involved in exercise or moving beyond the things that they feel are stopping them. Because most of the time, our expectations or a fear of pain will put those barriers in place, and then we can look at ways of taking all of those away. And we also look at what you can do as a coach so you're not overstepping your boundaries by getting involved in injury prevention. So at the moment, I have a crowdfunding project going on, and you can get this level 1 training, an exclusive bundle that you cannot get anywhere else. So I'll put the link in the comments below. It's only open for another 3 weeks. So if you really want to get into this training or find out more about the crowdfunding project, go and check out the link in the description. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.